Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the PokerNews podcast. It is me, your girl, Sarah Herring, joined by Chad Holloway and Jeff Platt. This is the podcast part 2 because something happened in the middle of part 1. And so all of our authentic, really natural moments are all going to be gone. And we're just going to get right into the nitty gritty. We are basically probably officially over with the World Series of Poker now. I hope so. But we can't really be certain anymore. Who knows? But I have to say it has been a really fun and exciting, actually, last couple of months. But it's been long.
It's been long. It's been 2.5 months. We started on July 1st. It's September 16th at the time of taping. Chad Holloway, could you do another 2.5 months? Ha ha ha. I said that on part 1 of the podcast also, that failed miserably. So I just went right back to my script. Chad.
Well, I'll say something different. I could do another 2 months.
Oh, there we go.
Absolutely.
That is not what he said on the first taping.
No, it was definitely a long grind. And, for looking back on everything, I thought it was pretty successful. Both the WSOP.com, both the GGpoker, the stories that came out of it. Was it comparable to the actual WSOP during the summer? Not exactly, but was it a good substitute, a good one-off year to tide me over? I think so. We're moving into September, like you said, into the fall. The summer's over. I'm looking forward to 2021 WSOP at this point. Now, that said, we might not have seen the last of the WSOP here in 2020. As we know, they are hoping to hold a fall event. Now, if that actually takes place in Las Vegas, I would be surprised. I think most people don't think it's going to happen. Daniel Legrand on Dat Poker podcast said it's almost zero chance that that could happen given the current state of things, given the current ban on large gatherings in Nevada. However, I do have some contacts, some sources who have informed me, and I can't share too much, that behind the scenes officials are looking at different opportunities of how to make something work. It probably wouldn't be akin to a full-blown schedule. Maybe it'd be a few events. Maybe it'd be just one event. I know they're bantering about different ideas. Now, whether or not they can actually pull those off, get approval for them, remains to be seen. But there still is hope. And, of course, we still have the World Series of Poker Europe out there and what the future of that might be. Will it be held live at King's Casino? Maybe they'll do another online version. Who knows? But I don't think that we've seen the last of the WSOP here in 2020.
But if we did see the last of it, it would have been in the Casino Champions event and something like that. There was a lot of speculation about this thing. A lot of people weren't really sure how it was going to go, if people were actually going to show up. And I guess we'll just keep Jeff also out of this part of the show and just go right back to Chad, because this kind of feels like your area of expertise. What went down?
Sure. So the Global Casino Championship is the culmination of the WSOP circuit. Now, this year's circuit was interrupted about halfway through with the pandemic, with COVID-19. A lot of events got canceled. They've continued to get canceled. There hasn't been any WSOP circuit stops since. But they already had point earners who were earning points and trying to qualify for the GCC, the Global Casino Championship. And they do that in a number of different ways. They can win a main event at one of the stops. They can finish as the casino champ, which means getting the most points. But depending on finishes and cashes, they also earn points for a national leaderboard. And the top 50 finishers at the end of the season get an automatic bid into the GCC, which is $1 million free roll, basically. And then you also have anybody who's won a ring throughout the season, or anybody who finished in the top 100 of the WSOP Player of the Year race last year have the option to direct buy for $10,000 into the tournament, which might juice the prize pool just a bit. Now, this year's event was slated to be held at Harris Cherokee in North Carolina, where it's been the past few years. But with COVID, again, that got interrupted. It got pushed back. It was supposed to take place, I think, back in May, and it wasn't going to happen. So WSOP decided to hold it online this year. WSOP.com. Players had to be in either Nevada or New Jersey. It was a bit controversial, but they didn't want to hold off indefinitely, not knowing when they could actually hold this event. So they said, let's do it online. Some players were very unhappy, but the number itself of entries ended up being pretty good. So you had 123 qualifiers, and 7 people who direct bought in. So that $70,000 went to the prize pool, 130 entries, $1.07 million prize pool. And to put that in context of past national or global casino championships, the first one ever held in 2011 was 100 entries. The second one had 157 entries. That reason that was so large was because it was held in Vegas during the WSOP, so there was a lot more direct buys into that particular event. In years since, it's moved around. It went to New Orleans, it went to Atlantic City for a bit, and now, as I've mentioned, it's settled more in Harris Cherokee for the past few years. 130 entries makes it the second largest global casino championship ever. For the past 7 years, the field has run from as low as 122 up to 129. So, I mean, all things considered, it seems like this thing was a success.
First of all, that was an impressive breakdown. Secondly, I certainly agree with you when you say it was a success. The stars were out for this one. We had Brian Altman in the mix. He finished 16th. Matt Stout finished 17th. Mike the Mouth Matiso finished in 10th. And then the bubble boy for the final table. It was a 9th place finish for one Daniel Negreanu. I was also listening to the Dat Poker podcast, and I believe he said that Alan Kessler said, hey, man, there's one more online bracelet event. You should fire it. You should collect 100K from every single person who you have a bracelet bet with. If you win this one, and Negreanu made quite the run. He was chip leader throughout a significant portion of the tournament and fell just short out in 9th for $26,643. There is still a chance that Negreanu could go bracelet hunting later in the year. As we mentioned, there could be a WSOP Europe. There could be some other things that Chad says may be in the works. But for now, it looks like Negreanu will owe Connor Drynan a cool $100,000 after Drynan's win at the very end of the GG portion of the World Series of Poker last week.
And Chad, you went ahead and talked to the eventual champion of the Casino Championship. You want to just tee that up for us?
Yeah, I actually sat down with Andrew Kelsall, aka AJ Kelsall. He goes by Randy Lurch online. So he's a 3-time WSOP circuit ring winner. He won 2 of those rings this year. That's what got him into the national Global Casino Championship, rather. He earned enough points to finish 4th on the overall leaderboard, so he was what we call an at-large qualifier. He navigated a pretty tough field. Jeff just highlighted a lot of those guys, but at the final table itself, he ended up beating Michael Trevette heads up. Michael Trevette won the Planet Hollywood main event back in November. For the victory, Kelsall took home $275,000, a WSOP gold bracelet, which was his first, and what he called a, quote, dream come true. He was kind enough to sit down with me the day after his win, and here's what he had to say. All right, I am joined by my very special guest, a man fresh off winning the 2020 Global Casino Championship for a WSOP bracelet and $275,000, and arguably the world's greatest or most devout Philadelphia Eagles fan, Mr. AJ Kelsall. Thanks, man, for taking the time to chat with us.
Hey, no problem at all. Sunday started off to be a bad day watching that Eagles game, and I decided to try to make it better, and definitely worked out. It got a lot better later on in the day.
My colleague at PokerNews, Mo Nuara, who's a big sports fan, he told me to ask you when he learned that I was going to be chatting with you if the Eagles' poor performance on Sunday inspired you to really put up a great performance in the Global Casino Championship.
I don't know if I can say inspired me, but yeah, I definitely was looking to try to make it a better day. That's part of the funny story is I was watching football. I was in the Westgate Sportsbook at 7:30 in the morning on Sunday morning to get my seat. And I started up the tournament actually sitting there watching probably the end of the Eagles game and then the second round of games, the afternoon games. And then I probably played about 4 hours there. And then I left and came back to the condo that I sublease out here and finished the tournament there. So
Nice.
Kind of a cool story that I played the first 4 hours sitting in the sports book that a lot of people could probably relate to.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Global Casino Championship. It was moved online this year, given what's going on with the pandemic. Now, usually this is a tournament that's held at Harris Cherokee in North Carolina. It's a live tournament that circuit grinders qualify for throughout the year. So you can either qualify one of 3 ways. You either win a WSOP circuit main event, you win a WSOP Circuit Stop Casino Championship, or you finish in the top 50 of the points leader over the course of the circuit. You actually finished in the points. You were they call it an at-large qualifier, if you will. And I believe, you had a great season. You captured 2 rings, and I believe you finished, was it 4th on the overall points leaderboard out of the 50?
That's all correct. I don't really travel the circuit that much. The only circuits I went to were in Tampa, which is kind of my home circuit. I went to Baltimore. I played the Planet Hollywood, a few at the Rio in Vegas, and then Cherokee last year for the Global. So I played that circuit event that was there during the Global, 2019.
Right. And so do you split? I know you're a huge Eagles fan, so I just assumed you were, from the Philadelphia area, but then I see that you spend more time in at least Tampa Bay and then, of course, some in Vegas. So do you really split your time between Tampa and Vegas?
Yeah, Tampa's been technically my home for the last 20 years, although my friends say I'm a vagabond because I don't even really have a place there. I stay with a buddy there when I'm in Tampa. But I'm originally from Philly. I grew up in Philly, went to high school in Philly, so I still bleed green on one arm for the Eagles and red out of the other arm for the Phillies. So always will stay diehard like that.
There you go.
So most of my friends were in Tampa or Philly, yeah.
So with the Global Casino Championship moving online, it was a controversial decision. I know a lot of the circuit grinders who didn't care for that decision. Some didn't seem to mind too much. What were your thoughts when you first learned that it was going to be moved online?
Honestly, I totally understand why they did it. I understand the decision. Personally, I wasn't thrilled with it because I'm not really like an online grinder. I don't play a lot of online poker tournaments anymore. I used to back in the day to some extent, but over the last 10 years, I've barely played any online tournaments at all. And I feel like one of the best things in my game is talking to people and getting reads on people and just being friendly at the table and kind of using little things like that to my advantage. Everyone says my tongue is the best part of my game. Some of my friends say so. Definitely a little bit disappointed. And also, it's a really fun tournament. I really love Cherokee. I had a lot of WSOP circuit dealers that I really liked. It's kind of cool when they're there. They could have been a part of this. But, looking back now, if it had been there, I probably would have come in about 95th place. So, I'm pretty happy it went online at this point.
Right. It was a fun tournament. We did the live updates for PokerNews, and it was cool to see, all the circuit grinders there. I get the frustration of why, that it couldn't be live and they had to move it online. But, this has been a strange year, to say the least. And, I can see the WSOP's point of wanting to kind of get this over with or not postpone it any further, especially into a future where we don't know what's going to happen. The WSOP circuit right now usually would be well underway, and it hasn't even started. And for all, best guesses, it doesn't look like the circuit's going to return anytime soon, maybe not till 2021. So let's just get back real quick to the win itself. You defeated a pretty stacked, obviously a stacked field. Like we mentioned, all the qualifiers, all the main event winners. There was also 2 other ways that people could get in. Had anybody won a ring throughout the season, they could pay $10,000 to actually buy into the event, or anyone who finished in the top 100 of the WSOP Player of the Year race last year could also pay $10,000 to get in. We've seen 7 players do that. Daniel Negreanu, Mike Mattisau were the 2 bigger names that got in. And Negreanu and Mattisau actually both made deep runs, finishing in 9th and 10th place respectively. And then at the final table itself, you had some really tough competition in like Sean Daniels, Michael Wang, Brad Albrink, and then finally Michael Trevette, who you ended up beating heads up. What was the road to victory like for you?
Well, like you said, it was a lot of great players. So some of the people you were talking about that probably didn't like that it moved online were not happy because some of the bigger names in poker could buy in, like Negreanu and Mattisau. And I know James Carroll bought in. I know Anthony Zeno bought in. But to me, there was just 7 of those. It doesn't change things that much. It's only 7 people. If there were
Right.
70 or 200 extra people buying in, then I can understand it being a bigger complaint. So to start off, I really didn't have a problem with that at all, the fact that a few extra people got to be in. And it ended up being kind of cool to win a tournament where a couple of those big names, were in the final 10 people. As for the tournament itself, like I said, I started in the sportsbook at Westgate. I really was playing way tighter than normal. I timed out 4 or 5 times. I'm watching the games, looking back down at my iPad. Oh shit, I missed my hand. So it started off really slow. Middle of the tournament, I probably had starting stack or so. Never really got above average the entire time. When it was on the bubble, I had about an average stack. I lost a hand with ace king to ace nine to put me down to 7 big blinds. And then right after that, I won with ace queen against ace king when I hit a queen on the river with about maybe 15 people left. And then I just kind of was hanging on. And then with about 6 people left, I had back-to-back doubles within about 3 or 4 hands. And I went from probably just under average to being the chip leader with 6 people left. And then I just kind of took the ball and ran with it from there, and basically was chip leader the rest of the way, except for maybe one tiny stretch in there in the middle.
I know when it got to heads up play, so when there was 3 left, you won a pretty big flip against Brad Albrink. You had pocket fours hold against ace jack. You actually flopped a set and he flopped a pair of jacks, but you win that hand. So you go into heads up play with a more than 2-1 chip lead over Michael Trevette. He won his way in from winning the WSOP circuit main event at Planet Hollywood there in Las Vegas. And so you got to be feeling pretty good, but real quick, Trevette ends up getting a double. He takes the chip lead. What were you thinking at that point? Was that, frustrating, or were you just like, you know what, just got to get, got to bounce back?
That was definitely frustrating. When that hand happened, obviously this has been a long journey for me. I've never won a bracelet. You just think, all right, 1 flip from a bracelet. And then when you lose that hand, that pretty much put us even in chips. So it was frustrating, but I still just thought, okay, we're even in chips. This is still a great spot. I remember getting up and carrying my iPad to the refrigerator, and I grabbed the water and just downed the water real quick and kind of refresh, and sat back down on my chair. And he actually won a couple of hands after that and got me about to a 2-1 lead, or he had a 2-1 lead after that. And then I won a couple of pots, including a pot with ace nine on an ace high board, where I basically checked it to him on every street, and he bluffed every street. And that was a pretty big pot. It gave me the lead back. And then I basically just kind of won a couple small pots, and then before the last hand from there.
Yeah, the last hand was pretty exciting in that, let me make sure I'm getting this right here. It was an ace 7-4 flop. Michael Trevette had 2 pair, 7s and 4s. You had the 3-5 suited, so you flopped a double gutter to a deuce or a 6, and you get all the money in. That's obviously a big hand, and you're looking to improve. What was going through your head when the chips got?
Actually, at that time, I had him. I had about 6.5 million, and he had 1 million. So I knew basically any hand I played at that point, I could kind of afford to take one all in for him, even if maybe I'm not getting the best of it, and take a chance to knock him out. Even if I lose that hand, I still have him 5.5 million to 2 million, which is still a pretty good edge. So I was definitely looking to, at that point, just gamble on a reasonable hand. He limped in on the button that hand with his 4-7. Obviously, I checked my option, and when the flop came, I checked to him, and he bet a min bet of 100,000. I think the blinds were 50 and 100,000 at that point. He had about 10 big blinds behind, and I really just don't put him on an ace, because he would shove pre-flop with any ace, and with it being ace 7-4, like, what hand could he have? I figured, well, when I jammed all in, he called. That's about the one hand he could have, 4-7. That's a really good hand to call with. And obviously I got pretty lucky and hit my deuce right in the turn. And there's a lot of skill in poker, but there's a lot of luck in there too. And sometimes it's just your day. So I've had that go the other way a few times. So I was pretty happy to have it go my way in that spot.
So what did you do when the last card peels off? He doesn't boat up. You win the title. You win the money. You win the bracelet. What was it like for you? You said you were in your condo. Was anybody there railing you, or was this just a personal moment of victory?
Nope, nobody was there railing me. I just think I just kind of yelled, yes, finally, one time to myself. And I had 3 different friends that have, I've been friends with for 20 years since I started playing poker, that have kind of followed my whole journey, that I was texting with during that time, back and forth, kind of like, boom, we knocked one out, whatever it was, my phone was just blowing up. So when it was all done, I called each one of them for a minute or 2 each. And then I got a call from another good friend of mine who takes a small piece of my action in some of the bigger tournaments I play. And I had no idea he was watching. I always say he's very stupid-stitious, I call it. So he wouldn't tell me he was watching the whole time. So it was kind of cool to get a call from him right when it ended. And, know that he watched for, 3 or 4 hours, until about 2 a.m. Eastern time. So it was cool to have some friends involved, even though I was actually in Vegas, by myself. I had a lot of people, rooting by phone. So that was neat.
And I know, having talked to you off the air a little bit, that you have some fun plans back in Tampa when you actually receive the bracelet. The WSOP will end up mailing that out to you, that you're going to have some sort of get together to celebrate.
Yeah, the Ale House is kind of my spot in Tampa. I like to go to watch football, and some of my buddies, we meet out there. When I come into town, and I think we'll probably do it there. You actually recommended, and a couple other people recommended also that just when it comes in the mail, I should just not open it and take the box there, and sort of do our own bracelet ceremony at the Ale House with a few beers and catching up with friends. And I think that'll be a pretty cool way to do it.
Right. And we always like to ask, $275,000 is a lot of money. You have any plans for any of that big payday?
I honestly don't have any set plans for it. Over the last couple of years, I've started to travel a lot more. Like I went to the Aussie Millions in January for my first time ever going to Australia, and first time going out of the country for any really major set of tournaments like that. So I like to do a few more things like that. Obviously, the money is awesome. I've said this to some people. I mean, especially in these times, I know a lot of people are struggling for money, so I don't want to downgrade the money or say it wasn't great. But to me, this is really about my journey and just the culmination of everything I've gone through to finally win a bracelet. I mean, I've been trying to win one for years. I've been going to WSOP probably for 15 years on shorter trips, like a week or two.
Sure.
And really the last 3 or 4 years, I've gone for the entire time and really played a lot of tournaments and really made it a goal. So, to finally get that is really what this was all about. Even though the money is nice, you can blow the money, you can spend the money can, go different places, but I can always have that bracelet and I'll always be a bracelet winner. So that was, to me, the really cool part of it.
Well, I think it was very awesome. I've known you from the circuit for a while. I always appreciate you always wear the Eagles gear, so you're easy to pick out of a crowd, right? You usually have an Eagles jersey of some sort.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, either an Eagles jersey or a Phillies jersey. Not necessarily always on the day ones, but pretty much if it's a day two or anything where there could be, any kind of coverage or someone taking a picture, I always try to wear the Eagle stuff just for all my friends in Philadelphia. Just kind of rep the Eagles, rep the Phillies. That's, I guess everyone has their niche or thing they do. That's just kind of my thing.
Right. Well, I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, so I've had a lot of years of pain. But your Eagles, like I said, we both lost on Sunday for football, but you won big, in your own right. And I reached out to you right after the win to see if you'd be willing to join us on the podcast. I wasn't expecting an answer straight away, but you gave me one, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about that win. And I hope you enjoy, your win and your reign as the global casino champ.
No problem. It's awesome. I'm just going to tell one other story. My friends know it, but some people don't. I said about 10 years ago that the two things I'd like to do before I take my dirt nap, as I put it, would be to witness an Eagles Super Bowl and to win a WSOP bracelet. So now I've accomplished both those things. I went to Minnesota for the Eagles Super Bowl in minus 20-degree weather. And even though it was an indoor game, but still we did all that. It was cold, and I definitely don't regret that. That was awesome. And then this is right up there with it. So that's my two things I accomplished. And I'm still planning on sticking around for a few more years, but at this point, everything's accomplished, so I'm good.
Well, we have a great rest of the show planned for you guys. I, for one, cannot wait to talk more Stones drama. Everyone knows that may be my favorite thing to talk about. And we've been interviewing ladies all week. We're going to do a focus next week on ladies in poker, but also really it is worth talking about, and I think something we should be talking about because of the dramatic numbers and the incredible success we saw with women specifically in the World Series of Poker this year, as that has come to a close. And in sort of staying in with us, kind of wrapping out the World Series of Poker, we want to give a big shout out to GGpoker, who has been supportive and helped sponsor the show, and who also offers bonuses, deposit bonuses and sign up bonuses if you use the PokerNews codes, which differ. This is something people have been asking me some questions about. It's not the same everywhere, and it's not the same for everyone. So probably the most effective thing to do is to just go check out on PokerNews.com. You can find out, depending on where you are and what your situation is, how you can get your deposit bonus. So again, thank you to GGpoker. And before we get into the ever juicy and always interesting Stones drama and gossip, we want to talk a little bit about the other tournament, which has been going on for some time now. It feels like the World Poker Tour World Online Championships. And before we get into that, I did make a promise to someone that I was going to give a shout out. I was just having a convo with someone, and they said to me, hey, I was out with one of my friends for a drink tonight. Poker came up at some point, and one of them said, oh, I always listen to the Poker News podcast with Sarah Herring and Chad Holloway. Sarah seems like a really cool girl to hang out with. So just wanted to let you guys know that's the vibe I go for. You know, I'm not like the poker expert or anything. I'm just like a cool girl to hang out with. And later on, I said, but what about Jeff? And they said, yeah, he's a really big fan, but Sarah just became a mom, blah, 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 knew all the stories about me, but they really don't like Jeff. So.
Wow. Wow. So Chad was kind of in the middle, like he at least got his name mentioned. They loved Sarah. And then me didn't get the name mentioned and then got bashed at the end.
Dude, I need it so much because whenever I'm listening to Jeff, I'm like, gosh, he's the best. Like, I'm just the worst. So then when someone says they love me, I'm just like, wow, that really makes my day because I have eyes and I can see, and we all know that Jeff is the best. Okay, so moving on, now that I got that sick needle in there, let's talk a little bit about the World Poker Tour World Online Championships, which is down to a final table as we speak. Yeah. Jeff, what's going down?
Speaking of poker villains, Damian Salas is in the chip lead. Just kidding. How can you not root for that guy? 1,011 entries in this one, the 10K main event of the WPT World Online Championships. It was a $10 million guarantee. They eclipsed that, more than $10.1 million in the prize pool. At the time of taping this podcast, they are at the final table of 9. Party Poker's own Dmitry Urbanovich is still in the mix. He is in 7th place. I mean, this is just a massive, massive, massive event. So props to the World Poker Tour and Party Poker. It had to have been tough for them this last, I don't know, month and a half or so competing with the World Series of Poker, but I think they did a really solid job with this one. And at the end of this final table, somebody is going to get their name etched on the Mike Sexton WPT Champions Cup, which will be a well-deserved honor for one of the final 9 players. Oh, and they'll get like $1.715 million. So that's cool too, I guess.
I think that's a good opportunity, Jeff, too, to encourage listeners to check out a special edition of the Poker News podcast that we did last week, remembering Mike Sexton, paying tribute to the man and his all that he did for the game of poker. We had the chance to speak to Vince Van Patten and Adam Pliska of the WPT, as well as others like Linda Johnson and Jan Fisher, among others, and even spoke with Mike Sexton's brother to learn a little bit more on the family perspective. And yeah, I mean, it was a different tone of an episode. Yeah. There's no news. There's no, anything like that. It was an episode devoted solely to Mike Sexton. So please do check that out and, take a time to remember all that he did for this great game of poker, because I think without him, we might not even be here with a podcast. He really helped grow the game so much.
So true. And I don't maybe watch all of the final tables or pay attention to all of the things that are going on or what Jeff is doing. But I actually think the final table of the World Poker Tour World Online Championships should be very interesting. I love Dmitry Urbanovich. I remember when he first sort of splashed onto the scene and everyone was just like, this kid is a crazy prodigy whiz kid. And I remember interviewing him in EPT Malta, maybe, when he won a high roller out of nowhere, one of the first things he had just won. And it's amazing. I like to give the little side things, but Dmitry Urbanovich smokes like a chimney, and he will just go outside and smoke in the middle of everything. It'll be in the middle of, it's like a 3-handed tournament, and he'll just go out and smoke and just miss like 4 or 5 hands and then just come back in like a straight serial killer. Not like no look on his face, like what, I don't know. He showed up, like missed entire levels when there was 6 players left in this high roller, and then just still crushed. He rolls out of bed like it's like, I don't know, he's got better things to do than like be at this poker tournament, and somehow he still wins. I remember just when he first came in, I was like, wow, this guy's like KGB or something. Like, I don't know. He's amazing, but he's really fun to watch play. And he's just a very smart kid.
You mentioned, Sarah, and it just reminded me when you said like, oh, I don't watch all the final tables, or I don't kind of take it all in. It reminded me of a few times where you and I have had interactions at the WSOP. And I've done this with other video girls throughout the years, whether it was Lynn Gilmartin or Christy Arnett type of thing. Like, you might say something along the lines of like, oh, well, didn't you watch my video? Like, we talked about that, or something along those lines. And I'd be like, did you read my article today? And then that ends the conversation right there.
That's what you think. But actually, we probably read more of your articles than you watch our videos.
You know, I do make it a point, especially during the WSOP. Last 3 years, I think, the WSOP, I made it a point to watch every single PokerNews video that was put out. So and I tried to do that.
I'm very sorry.
And everybody else listening should do that too.
There were some interesting ones a couple of years ago, I'll tell you that much.
When Jeff Platt was around?
Well, yeah, when I was around, but the videos that I'm referring to were not necessarily my videos. Beginning of 2018. Yeah.
Amber Alert?
Yeah, there were some interesting ones. Yeah.
It's a different time.
But anybody, that's a good point too. Like this podcast, if you're listening to this, we actually do a video format as well. So you can check that out. It's titled PokerNews Week in Review on PokerNews.com under the video section. So just a little plug there.
Well, moving right along in terms of other competition for, say, the World Series of Poker, or just in competition for attention on the online world in general, right on the heels of the World Series of Poker, we had the World Championships of Online Poker. And I have to be honest, I don't even understand what's going on in that we have back-to-back titles. I feel like just last week when we were talking, two of the leading stories were two double winners, right? Two people who had already won 2 WCOOPs back to, like, I'm not sure what's going on, but I feel somehow like this has got to be a statistical improbability. Why is everyone able to win multiple WCOOPs?
Well, no, that's an excellent question. We did see back-to-back victories again. This week, it was Nicholas Astet, who goes online by Lean at 900, who is one of the best online players in the history of the game. He wins his 3rd overall WCOOP. He wins event number 44, the high buy-in level, the $2,100 event. I mean, Mateos has had a 6 series. Astet has had 1 incredible series. The fields are, I feel like, starting to pick up just a little bit. Astet wins more than $80,000 for that victory. Also in that field was the crazy man, Frank Stockhouse, who goes by Nupel online, the German poker streaming duo who, you know, we think of Lex Veldhouse as top of the world as far as poker Twitch is concerned. And Lex does amazing on Twitch. She draws anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 viewers routinely. These crazy German dudes get like 50 to 70,000 viewers per stream. They are insane. They are really entertaining. They yell. They've got crazy music. I'm not even sure which one of them was the one that finished in 8th place, but one of these 2 crazy birds did finish in 8th for almost $13,000. Manning Gloser with the 6th place finish. He has had a really good summer as well. And Chad, how about I turn it over to you for more multiple WCOOP winners?
Yeah, this guy keeps impressing me. I keep seeing his name pop up, especially during the WCOOP, because he's now won 3 titles so far here in 2020. He actually had a WCOOP win back in 2015, and so this is his 4th WCOOP title, and that is Yuri. I'm going to butcher this last name, Zivlevsky.
Zivlevsky.
There you go.
Yeah.
Known as the Nerd Guy online on PokerStars. He recently won event number 48 high, which was a $5,200 no limit hold'em tournament, the Sunday Slam, for $245,000. That was his biggest score of his 3 titles. He also won event number 9 high, which was $1,000 50 buy-in. Deuce to 7 single draw, won that for just about $22,000. And then WCOOP 20 high was a $1,000 horse. He won that for $31,000. And so this actually marked his first no limit hold'em WCOOP title. His title back in 2015 was a PLO high-low championship. So here you got this young kid out of Brazil winning all these titles and doing it in different disciplines. He's certainly a guy who I hope maybe one day comes and plays, say, the 50K Poker Players Championship at the World Series of Poker. He obviously has the skills to do well in a big tournament like that. And right now, he is the king of the 2020 WCOOP.
And then in the mixed game format, we have Tobias Lekness, who plays online Senkel 92, who won his third WCOOP of 2015 by winning the $215 no limit Omaha 8er better 6 max progressive KO for almost $24,000. That is his 6th overall WCOOP title. That guy, I mean, I guess is just an absolute mixed games crusher and a mixed games legend. So Sarah, to your point, we're seeing some names really rise to the top of this WCOOP. It's been pretty impressive, pretty fun to watch.
2020, right? You said 2015, Jeff. His third
yeah.
title this year. Yeah,
he might have won 3 back then too. He's got 6 overall.
Yeah, fair enough.
$215 no limit Omaha 8er better is probably what I meant to say, and that just came across poorly. I'm a professional though.
So speaking of professionals, speaking of, people who everyone in the poker world talks about all the time, I really want to get into the juicy gossip, but I want to give a shout out to our other friends of the podcast, Run It Once. If you are interested and are able to play online poker, I definitely suggest you give it a try. You can also get a deposit bonus using the code once.run/PNPod. That's once.run/PNPod. So we've been following the Stones case for a while. There's been several sort of ups and downs. So far, mostly, I'd say disappointments with some, I think, lack of real momentum in the space of the justice system. But as a recent statement was released, maybe the real injustice was the pitchforks and bullying that the social media and the community of poker did against Stones and Mike Postle. I don't know. What do you think, Chad?
Well, and Justin Kuraitis in this case, who was in charge of the live stream at Stones, like the Stones TD, and Mike Postle's alleged accomplice in all of this. So, there was the speculation that somebody was feeding him cards, and crotch theory optimal, he was looking at his phone, somebody was feeding him that information. They were alleging that it was Justin Kuraitis. Now the settlement is in place, it's done. Veronica Brill, who was the whistleblower on this whole thing, was not part of the settlement. She decided not to sign that. And so you can still find her on Twitter. She's still chiming in about all this because she's free to do so. Whereas a lot of people who signed the settlement, and a lot of settlements like that, they have to sign some NDAs. So they're not free to really talk about it. Well, one person who decided to do a little chatting after the settlement became official was Justin Kuraitis. He released a statement on Twitter. It was rather lengthy, comes in at about 4 pages long. If you want the cliff notes, go on to PokerNews.com. Just type in Mike Postle or Justin Kuraitis in the search bar, and it will come up. And it was pretty controversial. I think it was basically claiming his innocence and how he was treated unfairly by the poker community, the poker world, the Twitter mob, if you will, that he has been found innocent. Now, this wasn't tried by a court, but as part of the settlement, Mac Verstandig, the lawyer for the plaintiffs, did admit that there was no evidence to suggest that either Stones or Justin Kuraitis actually cheated. That was part of the stipulation regarding the settlement. And, maybe perhaps most controversial about the entire thing is Kuraitis didn't just issue a statement and say, look, I was found innocent, I had no participation, and kind of leave it at that. He decided to throw some mud and shade at different people, PokerNews among them, and saying that, he was treated unfairly, that there was a mob, and that perhaps most glaringly was something that he didn't say, and that was whether or not he thinks Mike Postle actually cheated. He did say that he was ashamed, quote, ashamed to think that Mike Postle did cheat at one point, given everything that was going on, which would lead one to believe that he doesn't think Mike Postle actually cheated. And I don't know, what do you guys think about all this? You've seen the Twitter reactions as much as I did yesterday when this thing was blowing up.
Yeah, I think it was pretty absurd, to say the very least. You mentioned that he took a shot at PokerNews. With PokerNews making ridiculous claims, this is Kuraitis talking. I thought most of the articles, Chad, I would say that you wrote, obviously you had some help from the PokerNews staff, and in none of those articles, to my memory, there were claims being made. You're just like, hey, here's what's going on. Here are the facts of the matter. This is not an opinion piece. This is just pure news reporting. So that's one thing. I could go on forever, but I'll just make 3 points. Point number 2, here's this paragraph about Joey from Kuraitis. I watched in utter amazement as Joey Ingram devoted hour after hour to Postlegate. Some of the videos were entertaining, and they certainly were great for increasing Ingram's popularity. But as I watched them, it became clear that Ingram was peddling false statistics, cherry-picking hands to fit his theories, and ignoring data that did not fit his version of the story. Well, here were the Postlegate videos. They were Joey going online, pulling up a full broadcast of the Stones cash game, watching every single hand of a certain broadcast, a certain cash game that Mike Postle was involved in. So to say that he's cherry-picking hands to fit his theories, he can't be, because he's watching every single hand. So unless every single hand fit his theory, which maybe it did. And then point number 3, to point us to a media outlet like Rounder Life is maybe one of the most absurd things in an article just full of absurdities. Like that's, I won't get political here, but that'd be somebody telling you to go way far to the right or way far to the left because only that outlet has the facts. And Rounder Life, a site that I think Mike Postle is involved with in some form or fashion. I mean, this is just stupid. This is absurd. I think it'd be much better to say, I'm innocent. Boom, let's move on, and that's it. Instead of just taking shots for 4 pages, four pretty worthless pages, in my opinion. And then the Postle statement is like, this all goes way beyond just my innocence, but includes an entire incredible 17-plus year story along with it and what's happened since the allegations. In fact, it's such a mind-blowing story that it's being told to Dave Broom at 25/7 Productions, who will be producing a wild documentary for the world to see on it. And I'm sure that documentary won't be one-sided at all.
Yeah, I want to speak real quick to a couple points that you made, Jeff. Number 1, about PokerNews pieces. Yeah, I agree with you there. All the reporting that we did was based off something, whether it was a court hearing or court documents. It's not like we were out there wildly speculating. They could maybe believe that or what have you. But if you look at all the pieces, it certainly wasn't there. It was all rooted in something. I'll say it again. I've been saying it for the whole time. If Mike Postle ever wants to come on the show and chat with us, that invitation is there. I'll extend that to Justin Kuraitis as well. I mean, we're interested in hearing that part of the story too. One thing that was I found kind of interesting in the piece that Justin Kuraitis wrote, he wrote something about some players at Stones had circulated a petition in support of him. Why didn't PokerNews report on that? Well, number 1, I didn't know anything about it until I read his statement. Like how am I supposed to report on it if I don't know? If that was indeed the case, it certainly would have been, I think, newsworthy. I know our colleagues over at Card Player Magazine tried to dig into that and actually see if there was a petition and kind of came up empty. So whether or not that's accurate, who knows? But this whole thing, if I just don't know, it came off so bad. There was a tweet by Daniel Zach, and he's got a bunch of great tweets regarding this whole thing. And one of them was something about, I'm going to quote in his tweet saying that it's not shocking that the case couldn't be proven to a court that doesn't fully understand how poker works, but that doesn't exonerate Mike in the court of public opinion or in the court of common sense. Russ Hamilton didn't ask for an apology from the community. He fucked off. Now, I'm not going to say that should, in such harsh words, but there is some wisdom in there. And well, number 1, whether or not there was cheating has never been tried in court. It's important to remember that. A lot of the motions have been dismissed on different precedents before it was ever tried in court. You know, the evidence hasn't been presented in a court of law and determined in a court of law. It's never gotten to that point, and who knows if it ever will. Now, to the kind of fucking off part of it, I'm not saying that, you know, they should fuck off, but maybe ride off into the sunset. You're getting off pretty, you know, scot-free with, you know, the settlement was said to be for, you know, a nominal amount, and it wasn't even paid by Postle or Kuraitis, it was paid by Stones. And so, you know, ride off into the sunset, or if you're going to issue something, issue a statement kind of like I just said, something simple, you know, saying I was found innocent, I had no involvement, I don't know what happened, but I know that I wasn't part of it. Something along those lines, instead of kind of asking for an apology. And I don't know, it was almost like a defense of Postle in a lot of regards. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, the poker community ate it up. If you go and look at the tweets, you look at the responses to it, it certainly, I don't think, had a very good impact. He's certainly not getting any sort of apology. And if anything, kind of dug an even deeper hole where a lot of people thought, just based upon what was written, that it makes them seem more suspicious or more guilty, or they're more convinced that he did play some sort of part in it. And again, please, by all means, if you're listening to this, Mike or Justin, and you want to come on the show and tell your side, we're happy to hear it. But as of right now, you know, all we have to report on are the various court documents, the statement by Kuraitis, and then, of course, you know, reiterating a lot of the responses that we're seeing on Twitter.
I mean, there's obviously one part of me that does, I guess, sympathize. Yes.
You and Vera.
Yeah, she's pissed about it. But that does sympathize with the, you know, this like Twitter mob, or I think it's very much a part of just what we're talking about in general in 2020 is like cancel culture. And I do think probably he and many of the alleged co-conspirators did receive a ton of hate. And you're right, like nothing has actually gone through the judicial system. So that's basically all that we have and all that we're left with. And we're just trying to deal with the information and facts as we see them. I do think it's unfortunate in this world of social media that generally speaking, people are tried more in the court of public opinion than anything else. And I just also think that people spent a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to make sure that this was what was going on, right? I mean,
and so I'm with you on the whole cancel culture thing. I'm not a big fan of it, but I also think people have to be willing to defend themselves to a certain extent. And, you know, Kuraitis said in his statement that, you know, he remained silent at the advice of counsel as this was all going on, which is the right thing to do. That was exactly what he should have done. He was playing his cards right up until this statement. Now, the statement, you know, for all that we talked about, could have been done in a better manner, but also the follow-up to it now too. I've seen people ask some questions. One of them is Todd Witellis, who does great work at Poker Fraud Alert, right? So I'm a big fan of his, and he really asks some tough questions, and he digs into it. One of the questions I've seen him ask on social media numerous times and didn't have a response from Justin Kuraitis, at least the last time I checked. While Kuraitis was responding to other people's tweets, he ignored the question that Todd Witellis was presenting, which was, you know, you had previously said that you did an investigation into the cheating claims when Veronica Brill brought these up to you. What did you do? What was that investigation? What steps? What are some details around that? And so, like, if you are innocent and you want to clear your name, you got to shed some clarity on things like that. That's a pretty big question, in my opinion. You know, what sort of things were done? What did the supposed investigation entail? And the fact that he hasn't answered that, and there's a lot of other unanswered questions that I know the poker community would like to know. It doesn't add up to a lot of people.
Let's get him on. What do we got to do? Do I need to try to slide into the DMs? Is he going to say that PokerNews doesn't want to talk? Maybe, okay.
Because they make ridiculous claims, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to ridiculously try to get him on the show. Next week, we already have the show going, but maybe we'll do like a special edition or something. I'll reach out. I don't know, guys. I can understand what you're saying in the sort of like thou dost protest too much kind of thing. Maybe it would be easier, but I can also see, man, if you were like holding all this in for so long, then you just like explode everything out. It's probably, it feels a little emotional, and I don't know. I guess if nothing else, when you said like you really find out who your friends are, yeah, I'm sure that's what happens. I'm sure it's like seeing who shows up when you get arrested. It's not that many people, probably. There's one bonus. I'm gonna reach out to him. I know, Chad, you've been reaching out to Mike Postle for ages. Do you guys think this is sort of the end of the story?
No, I think it'll get a boost once this documentary comes out, and I have no idea if that's going to come out in the next month, if it's going to take 6 months, if it's going to take a year, but I think that this will come back into the limelight when people have the opportunity to see and listen to what Postle has to say. That's when I think the next boost for this story will come.
I do want to say one thing too in regards to this whole Postle situation is, well, Joey Ingram did a great job of the investigation that he did and all the videos that he did. I don't think anybody has actually sat down and this would be a huge undertaking. It would be very monotonous. It would not be a fun project to do, and actually sit down and watch every single minute of every single stream, write down every single hand, get all the numbers, all the math, all the details on every single hand that is out there, and compile that and work the math on different things. It's above me. I'm not that great with the numbers, but I know there are people out there who are mathematical geniuses that could break down everything. In all fairness, the plaintiffs, Mac Verstandig and them, probably should have done that. And I don't think they did, it never got to the point.
They did. I thought we talked about that. And that's one of the things they were bringing to the judge.
Now, I think this is one of the reasons of maybe a settlement is the judge was going to ask for rake, right? It was only a question of rake. So they would have to go back and determine every single hand, which they could have done, but they probably a little easier than taking the time to do that to work this settlement, right? So I don't know what the rake might have been throughout those games, right? Maybe, I don't even know. Just throw out a number. Let's say the rake was $30,000 throughout all the games or all the hands. Do you want to pay somebody a lot of money to sit down and calculate all that? And, when you can settle for whatever the settlement was, who knows? We just know that it was quote unquote nominal. But I don't think, as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong. If anybody is, tweet at me, let me know. But I know that there's been large chunks. There's been games. There's been broadcasts that have been broken down. But as, these are just sample sizes, if you will, and not the entire sample. Like I'm saying, every single live stream that exists out there, every single hand, every single thing, the wins, the losses, and pot sizes, and maybe even how the hand played out, and when he's raising here or folding here and things like that. If this were ever taken to trial, that would need to be done. Something like that would need to be done. And I think that, Rounder Life, which Jeff mentioned, is this website that's out there that has ties to Mike Postle, and are constantly attacking people on Twitter, myself included. I've been in on those. They are asking why people haven't crunched all the numbers. They'll offer some numbers of their own, which of course, who knows if they're not a reputable news source, and they wonder why people don't take them seriously. It's because it's clearly biased. They attack people. They're just very not professional. And, I stopped responding to them on Twitter. I know others, colleagues I've seen getting into the muck with them, if you will. But yeah, I don't know. I don't mean this as a defense of Mike Postle, but if the numbers are there, and I know there's a lot of numbers to be crunched, maybe somebody needs to take the time to actually sit down and do it. Or maybe people need to, let's work up a fund, a GoFundMe.
That's what I was just thinking. We need a GoFundMe so we can pay somebody like a reasonable wage.
Yeah, pay a third party to go out and crunch all these numbers and do an analysis and get the cold hard facts, the cold hard numbers of everything. And so like I said, I don't know if that's I don't think it's been done. As far as my knowledge, it hasn't been done. I know that there are large sample sizes that have been done, but of course I could be wrong.
Well, I, for one, don't want to start the GoFundMe, but if anyone else wants to, I think that would be awesome. And I agree. I still think, it would be, because of the nature of poker, even if we could prove all of that, it would still probably likely only exist in the court of public opinion, because I think, ultimately you could say, well, I just got super lucky if, you really wanted to. It's not like a reasonable doubt maybe type situation, but at least for us in the social media space, we could have some confirmation and feel better about coming with our pitchforks for some of these people. What did you think? Do you feel like there was some impetus for Mac Verstandig and his team to publicly also state that there was no evidence specifically found? Or I was kind of curious about why that statement even made its way into the sphere.
I'm sure it was just part of the settlement, like a non-negotiable part from Stone's and Kuraitis' lawyers to say, if we're going to do the settlement, this has to be included. Otherwise, no deal. And, at that point, given the things that were dismissed, the Postle stuff was automatically dismissed by the judge. And he basically said you can refile against Stone's and Kuraitis, but only for the rake. And like I said, so we're going from this lawsuit that is alleging hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages to the rake of these games, which is provable, like I said, by going through each hand, determining the size of the pot and how much they would have raked out of those. It's a very monotonous task, and the number, like I said, I don't know what the number would be, but it's not exactly a huge number, especially when you're going to spread that out among the 60 or 80 plaintiffs that were part of this case, whatever it might have been. So I think it might have been one of those things for where the parties came together and said, look, this would be a headache for us to go through all of this for this smaller amount. How about we just offer you this and be done with this whole mess? Like, that just seems like both parties would be happy with that. I don't know if that's how it played out, but as part of that, certain demands were going to be had from both sides. It's a negotiation, it's a compromise, and I'm sure one of them was for Mac Verstandig to say that there is no evidence to support that Stones or Justin Kuraitis cheated. Now, it's an interesting, right? So let that stand on its own. That's to say cheating, right? That they were engaged in something. That doesn't say anything about negligence. So if Postle was cheating and that it was happening at Stones on these streams and they were, it was happening on their watch, well, then there's a certain amount of negligence that would be associated with that too. But as far as saying that there was no evidence of cheating, I think it's more of just like saying, all right, there's no evidence to suggest that they were in league with any wrongdoing that might have been going on.
Well, one thing is for sure that Ryan DePaulo's Crotch Theory Optimal video is the best thing to come out of this whole thing. I know that Joey Ingram did a great job, and way to go. Maybe that's part of my problem is I watched some of the Joey stuff, and a lot of it I was like, yeah, that's crazy. And then some of it I just, some of it's just probably over my head, in terms of knowing exactly what someone should or shouldn't be doing in certain spots. And one thing that I know for sure is that Crotch Theory Optimal was really funny. And from a poker content space, I have to say, this whole drama has been very interesting and fun from the standpoint of just something kind of, I guess, different to cover besides tournament wins and victories. And I hope that we didn't ruin anyone's lives unfairly. And I hope that, we treated it with the sort of respect and journalistic integrity that all, big news stories like this should be treated with. I feel like we did, but maybe we didn't. If we didn't, I'm sorry.
I feel confident that we did. I don't think that all organizations out there, might have treated it as fairly as could have been done. I've certainly tried to, tread lightly on things. And every time we've written a story on this, involving Mike Postle, I've reached out to him. I've got his number. I text him, giving him the opportunity to offer comment. He has thus far declined. We've had a few off the record back and forth and what have you. And that line of communication is still there. And again, if he ever wants to come on the show, or if he ever wants to tell his side of the story, I'll be happy to give him that opportunity. It's worth noting that if the saga doesn't end here, if perchance say that Justin Kuraitis or Mike Postle file some sort of suit for, what in their eyes might be libel or slander or something like that, damage done to their name from this whole mess, whether that's against any of the plaintiffs, whether it's against any media outlets, anything like that, it would be interesting. And I say interesting in that it reopens things a little bit, in that if it goes to an actual court, if it goes to in front of a judge or in front of a, I guess I don't know if there would be a trial in any kind of civil case or what have you, it would basically provide an opportunity for somebody to present evidence, right? So we haven't had that yet. All of these lawsuits have never gotten to that point where somebody could say, here's the evidence we have against them. It's always been dismissed. But if they were to bring some sort of suit that does go in front of that, then it opens the door, because if they're suing, let's say, I'll just say player A, right? I don't want to throw anybody's names out there. Let's say Mike Postle says, I'm going to sue player A for everything that's gone on, for libel, for slander. And all right, now player A, when he gets in front of the judge, can say, I didn't slander him. Here's my evidence. And then present the actual hands, can then present the actual numbers that we kind of talked about. And I guess if Mike Postle really is innocent, then he shouldn't have anything to worry about, and then he should proceed. If perchance he's not innocent, then that's a very dangerous can of worms to open, and a dangerous opportunity to give to any possible plaintiff. So it's interesting. It'll be curious to see if anything plays out, or if they do just ride off into the sunset, from this point forward.
Well, only time will tell. And I appreciate, of course, all of your work on this case, Chad. I'm glad to have somebody who has really been following it since the beginning. And, I just appreciate you. I appreciate both you guys, even though we know clearly Jeff's like the worst.
The worst. The absolute worst. Yeah. Good to be here, though.
And Jeff, what can we expect from you in the next coming weeks? You're going to be doing any fun streams or anything exciting?
That's an excellent question, Sarah. So glad you asked. Wednesday nights, twitch.tv/Rob VS Tyson. We have a little Survivor trivia night with some of the Survivor legends. Other than that, if you guys have any ideas for a Twitch stream, I'm just looking for stuff. Now that the World Series of Poker is over, what are we all supposed to do? So you can tweet at me, at Jeff Platt. If you have podcast ideas, you can tweet at Sarah, at Auntie Chardonnay. You can tweet at Chad Holloway, at Chad A. Holloway. So that was kind of transition from self-promotion to podcast promotion, which was pretty good, right? And I can't be the absolute worst if I did that.
I love it. It was perfect. And you guys can definitely look forward to next week. We've got a lot of awesome guests on the show next week. We're going to be putting something really juicy and good together. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you on the flip side. Deuces. My child.
The key to winning big is using every little bit of knowledge to your advantage. At Oddschecker, we give you the edge. Better odds, better picks, and better offers to make you a better bettor. Why settle for less? Quickly compare the odds at every sportsbook to ensure that you're getting the best price to maximize your return. Not only that, but we have experts on every sport, from hoops and football through to soccer and boxing. Our experts analyze the form and study the stats to deliver you totally free picks and parlays. Oddschecker also highlights the most lucrative welcome offers in the industry. If you're looking to open an account, then you are eligible for hundreds of dollars in totally free bets. If you're new to legal sports betting, then we're here to help, offering simple advice to understand betting guides and updates on your state's current legislative situation. Visit us at www.oddschecker.com/US. Oddschecker, sports betting smarter.